Welcome to another video on this 1973 Cougar XR7. On this video, we're going to be talking about cost. What did it cost to get this car back on the road? It's not going to be a cost of what it costs to totally restore the car, just to get it back on the road from being sitting for decades. So I'm going to break it down as much as I can. It's going to be rounded off to the nearest dollar. And I'm sure I'm probably going to miss a few things here and there. So this is what this video is going to be about. So I hope I don't bore you to death. I'm going to do this in my office slash, working area. So I hope it does good for you. And this is going to be basic of what it would take to get a car like this that has been sitting for a long time without doing anything major to the motor and transmission and suspension. Of course, no body work, no interior work, just getting it back on the road. By the way, I got these cool shirts that I had made with my logo on it. Tell me what you think. I really like them. And it's got a nice logo in the back, as you can see. So it's going to be interesting. Stick with me. Here we go. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. We've been working on this 1973 Mercury Cougar on a few episodes, and I think now I found a stopping point where I can stop doing the work on the car. The car is already driving and it's already on the road, but I wanted to talk to you about something important, which is how much does it cost to get something like this done. So there's a lot of factors that kind of go into deciding or trying to figure out how much a project like this will cost. So I'm just going to run down on what I have on this car and give you an idea of how much it would cost to get a similar vehicle, and then do the things that need to be done on a vehicle like this that has been sitting for many years or decades. The first thing to keep in mind is to try to get a car that it's not real far gone, especially if you're going to do all the work yourself and you don't want to spend a lot of money. I know sometimes it's not going to be easy to find a good car with a real good price. I really like that on this vehicle. This is a 1973 Mercury Cougar XR7 that I found on Marketplace, and it was very reasonable priced. Actually, I had paid only $3,000 for this car, and it doesn't happen very often when you can find a car like that is in this good of a shape. But you can try to find it. So once you find your car, then you know that a car that has been sitting for a very long time is going to require quite a few things. I call them systems in a car. You're going to know that your fuel system, you're going to have to pretty much rebuild the whole fuel system, which means probably, do the gas tank, fuel pump, fuel lines, the steel lines they go to it, everything involved from getting the fuel from the gas tank all the way to the engine and then to the carburetor, and then the carburetor for it to work properly. So the different systems on the cars, that's just one of them. You have your electrical system, your charging system, cooling system, and so on and so forth. So all those systems pretty much on a car that has been sitting for a long time, you're going to have to address. There's no question about it. So, knowing those things when you get into it, then you will know that you're going to be spending some money doing those things. And then either you're going to have to decide whether you want to do all the work yourself. First of all, if you can do it, or if you have enough skill or enough determination to get the work done, that's probably going to be the best thing for you to do. Even if it takes you longer to do the work, that's how you're going to save the most money. So, or having a mentor or someone that can help you when you get stuck doing things like that. But, if you're going to pay someone to do all this work, you're going to be into a big expense. One of the things that it's very expensive nowadays is labor cost. I was checking with the local dealerships. They're charging anywhere from $120 to $150 an hour, just for labor hours. I mean, just to have your car checked nowadays, you take it to the dealership, they're gonna charge you $150, $250 just to have it checked. Now, a normal, should I say normal, or a different, like a independent auto shop may be different on the labor rates, but still gonna be up there, close to $100 an hour. So that means that if you look at the labor book, there's a labor book that tells, what a shop should charge for doing a certain type of work. For instance, if they're going to do a water pump on a car, that you can look up the year, make, and model of the car, for an example, and it'll tell you, okay, for this type of engine, for this type of car, it'll be 3 labor hours to do the work, for instance. And that's how they get paid. So they multiply, $150 an hour, for instance, times 3. So, that'll become the total for that water pump job. And then they can add things like a thermostat, and it can go on and on. But anyways, that's how that's charged. So labor is very, very expensive. So this is what I've done to this car so far to get it on the road. And this is typical of what you would do on a car that's been sitting for a long time. I mean, if a car has been sitting for more than 2 or 3 years, for sure you're going to have to do a lot of these things. And the older or the longest the car sits, not being driven or started, it's the longer it sits, the more work it's going to do. So I have a list here of expenses and things that I've done to this car, and I just want to go over them with you so you can have an idea. This is just so you can have an idea. I'm not trying to discourage you from, getting an older car and working on it, but a lot of people don't know pretty much what they're getting into sometimes. That's why you see a lot of failed projects. You see a lot of cars that people started working on them, father and son, or, a project, and they think, oh, we're gonna knock it out over the week, not the weekend, the summer, or, during the winter, or whatever, or in a year and a half, and then they find themselves, taking the car apart and then finding out that it's a lot more work than what they thought it was going to be. So I'm just going to go over these items and things that I've done on this car so you can have an idea. And all this work, if you could do it yourself, you'd be a lot better off. All this work I've done myself. And I also did a lot of research on parts. That's another way you can save a lot of money is, you shop around on parts. I found the best source, believe it or not, is on the internet. If you go to local parts house, whether it's, the big names, you're gonna find out that if you go out there and just try to buy a starter or alternator or a radiator on an old car, you can, and you will find them special ordered and stuff like that. You're gonna be paying a pretty good premium. If you get on the internet, start doing research, you go to the big internet places, you'd be surprised you can find most of the times the same quality of parts, sometimes better, sometimes a little less, but sometimes, it's all within your budget. For instance, I had priced a radiator on a vehicle from a local auto parts store, and let's say, for instance, it was like $250. And then to my surprise, I can go to the internet with free shipping and get it for like $65. And the quality wasn't that bad, and it's got a warranty on it. So you can do that and save a lot of money just by shopping around and just look at your different what you would do to try to save money, different options. So I found out that I was able to save a lot of money by doing this. So this is the rundown on what I've done, and I rounded all the numbers pretty much to the nearest dollar. So I'm not gonna quote any cents after the dollars, and this is for me looking for the best deal and the best quality of parts that I can find. So I got this separated in systems. I call them systems, but I'm just gonna go down the list, And then so you can have an idea what I've done. Like I mentioned before, I paid $3,000 for the car. But also, you have to go get the car. So you need to put that in consideration, whether you're going to have it towed or you're going to get your trailer, you go get it. You're still going to spend gas to go do that. And, you're going to, if it's far away, you're going to have to stop at a store and you're going to have to eat lunch and all those kind of things. So this is what I got here. So the vehicle was $3,000. Transport, I call it transport. That's the expense of going to get the vehicle. I got it at $300. Taxes, title, and transfer. There's something very important that a lot of people overlook. You need to make sure you get a clear title on the car, and as soon as you do the purchase, go ahead and get it changed over to your name. A lot of people, sometimes you go buy a car, and it's very discouraging when you go buy a car and the car's been handed over, so to speak. The title was never transferred, and people just gave the when they sold the car two or three times, or as many hands as that has been exchanged with the ownership of the car, the title just gets given to the next person without changing their name to it. So if you get a car and then you buy it from John Doe, you're gonna find out that somebody else owned it 10 years ago, and it's been exchanging a lot of hands like that. It's kind of very annoying. So the first thing you need to do is when you get the title, make sure that immediately within days go to your local DMV place, Department of Motor Vehicles, and change the title out. Make sure that the title is signed the proper way, and make sure you have the proper documentation, because that's also gonna add to your expenses in case you have to get a bonded title that costs a lot of money. So you always need to have, when you purchase a car, make sure you get a title, because if you don't, the last time I bought a car without a title, and I knew that the car did not have a title, it cost me about $1,000 to get a bonded title, a title on that vehicle, and that's an extra expense that I did not expect. But since I liked the car and I knew it was a special car, I did not mind it spending the extra $1,000. Excuse me, I got something in my eye. Uh, so they could be a big expense, but if it's a normal transfer, title transfer, you gotta pay for taxes on the car. So I put down $400 for tax, title, and transfer. And also, you got to put in insurance, because in order for you to transfer over and have a car on the road, you got to have insurance. So I put $400 for insurance. The first system that I got here, it's the starting system. Most cars, in all car, you're gonna need to buy a battery. That's a given. I mean, batteries is probably the first thing you're gonna purchase. So a decent battery is gonna cost you at least $100, $130, $150. So I put it down for $130. Then on this car, I ended up buying a starter. The starter wasn't all that great, so I got $50 for the starter. And that's it for the starting system for right now. Then I moved on to the ignition system. In the ignition system, I got spark plugs for $35. I got the spark plug wires for $40. I have points and condenser for $25. And I got the cap and rotor for $25. Like I said, this is a good prices on these parts, because I shopped around and I got the best deal that I can get. So the next system is the fuel system. And this is the fuel system is the most common, to where you're gonna have to replace pretty much everything in the fuel system. Sometimes you can get away with not replacing the steel lines. Like in the case in this car, I did not have to replace the steel lines that were in good shape, but I did end up flashing them real good. So in the fuel system, I purchased a gas tank for $140, a carburetor kit for $30, a fuel pump for $30, fuel filters and clamps for $20, and hoses for $40. So, that's pretty much the whole fuel system. And I got pretty lucky with the carburetor because the carburetor, it only needed a carburetor kit. So just keep in mind that you have to buy a carburetor that can run into hundreds of dollars, some up to $400 or $500 for a carburetor replacement. So that's it on the fuel system. Um, I put my next category into engine and transmission. I put those together, and luckily for me on this particular car, the engine and transmission, they were in pretty good shape. Everything was intact when I bought this car. The engine looked like no one's messed with it. The same thing with the transmission. Everything was in place. So when I got the car started, I was very happy to find out that the engine, even though it was 40 plus years old or something like that, decades old, it still ran good, and there was really nothing major wrong with it, along with the transmission. But this is the things that I ended up doing to the motor and transmission just to get it to where it was good and drivable and reliable. I did several oil changes, as you saw in the previous videos. I had problems with the oil in the engine solidifying pretty much and kind of turning into tar almost. So I ended up flushing that out real good and doing several oil changes and several engine flushes. So I got oil change and filters for $60. Um, I did a timing chain on the vehicle. And the reason why I did that is because the water pump was leaking, and that's from the cooling system. But anyways, what I thought, well, I don't know how many miles this car really has. And when I had replaced the fuel pump, I was able to look through the timing chain cover, and I felt the timing chain itself, and I pushed it with my finger, and I felt that it was real loose. So while I was doing the water pump, I thought I was right there, so might as well do the timing chain. So I ended up doing the timing chain, even though it was running fine with the timing chain the way it was, but it was more like a maintenance, and to make sure that this car was going to be running for a long time. And while I was there, I had all the pulleys removed. I had everything off. I had the water pump off. All I had to do is remove the timing chain cover and get to the timing chain components. And I did that just to be on the safe side. So I did a timing chain, and the components on the timing chain set was $45. The gaskets and sealers, $45 also. And then I did a transmission fluid on the transmission. That's the only thing I've done on the transmission. And most of the times when a car sits, the transmission fluid will leak slowly through the seals and gaskets. So that's all that done to the transmission. Luckily for me, it only needed like maybe 3 or 4 quarts of transmission fluid. So once I added the transmission fluid in it, it was fine, and it started working, and it went in gear, and it's shifting fine, and I don't have any major leaks. I haven't done a transmission fluid change, but that's more down the road for maintenance. Uh, the next system is the brakes and suspension. I put it all together, and I'll talk about the brakes first. Especially on a car that's been sitting, like I mentioned, for many years, many decades. Anything that holds fluid, especially the brake system, everything's got brake fluid in it, and it's been sitting for a long time. It's gonna have to be replaced. Everything that is made out of rubber in that system, like the hoses, seals, wheel cylinders, all that needs to be replaced. To be on the safe side, brakes are very important. Believe me, you want good brakes when you get your car running. So on the brakes, I replaced the master cylinder for $50. The front pads for $35. The front caliper bushings for $20. The brake hoses, there was 3 of them, 2 for the front. Those are the rubber hoses. They go from the caliper to the body to the steel lines. 2 for the front, 1 for the back. A total of $70 for 3. The rear shoes, $30 for the rear shoes. And both of the wheel cylinders for the rear at $45. And the springs and hardware for the rear shoes at $25. On the suspension on this car, I was very fortunate that when I checked the front suspension, there was really nothing worn out in it. Um, I have reason to believe that this car was a very low mileage car. I cannot prove it, but it looks like it was a low mileage car. So all the suspension components, I had no slack on the ball joints, and I had no slack on tie rod ends. Everything was real nice and tight. The only thing on the suspension that I ended up doing was replacing the shocks. And you know what? As a matter of fact, I don't think I have, I didn't put the shocks down in this list, but I replaced the front and rear shocks, and probably that would probably add an extra $150 for the set. Um, but as far as the suspension, I didn't have to do anything to it. It's a nice and original, and I saved a lot of money. But it was definitely in good shape, and I didn't have to do anything with it. Um, the next area was the wheel and tires setup, especially the tires. You're gonna have to get a new set of tires on a car like that. Even if the car, had new tires that were put on like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, those tires are gonna have flat spots at the bottom if you're lucky. If not, they're gonna be dry rotted. So for sure, you need to replace the tires. So I replaced the four tires on this car at about $300. It was nothing special about these tires. It was just a replacement tire that I found, uh, at a very reasonable price, but they were brand new tires. And then I replaced the rims, and the reason why I replaced the rims is because the car came with real ugly, real skinny 14-inch rims. They were, I think they were 14 by 5 or 6 inches wide. So they were terrible, and I didn't like the look of them. I had a set of Magnum 500 wheels that I had in my shop for a very long time. They came out of an early Mustang, and they were original wheels. They were in fair shape, 15 by 7s. So I went ahead and got those, but I put the price on what they would cost. So I got $300 for the tires and a decent set of Magnum 500 wheels. They're original, 15 by 7s. Actually, those came out of a 71 429 Mustang. I priced those at $600. That was optional. You don't have to do that, but I really wanted to improve the looks of the car. I also replaced the lug nuts on that for $25. And then moving on to the cooling system, there's another area. When I first got the car running, the water pump was leaking. So most of the times, if a car's been sitting for a long time, the front seal is going to get dried up and it's going to leak. So if it doesn't leak right away, it'll leak later. But this one started leaking right away. So I was able to notice that it was leaking. So the water pump I replaced for $45. Also, the thermostat has to be replaced. A lot of these old cars, people pull the thermostats out of them. But you need a thermostat, especially in the winter. Plus, you need a thermostat to make sure the system was working properly and cooling properly. Thermostat for $25. Heater hoses. All the heater hoses were completely rotted out and they were hard as a rock. So I replaced the heater hoses while I was working on the engine compartment. I kind of lucked out, and the upper and lower radiator hoses were still in good shape, but probably in the future I'll probably have to replace those as well. But for right now, I did not replace them. And then I added coolant and hose clamps at $50. And then what else? I added miscellaneous. I'm sure there's a lot of small items like fuses and electrical tape and butt connectors and zip ties that you use, and grease, and WD-40 or lubricants that that you're gonna use, carburetor cleaner, brake cleaner, cotter pins. So I put that as miscellaneous for $100. So I have a total in parts. And this is just a pretty close estimate. And this is only on this car, just to get it running and get it on the road. Just for parts, I was surprised that I spent about, I forgot to add the shocks here. So if I add the shocks, we're probably looking at about $3,500 for parts. And I was surprised, until I started editing everything up. Um, and the reason for that is because, I didn't buy all the parts at one time. You find yourself, okay, I need a set of brake pads and a master cylinder and brake hoses. So you buy a little bit at a time. But even like that, it added up to about $3,500. So I spent about $3,500 just to get the car running and on the road. Keep in mind that I did not rebuild the motor or transmission, or did not rebuild the suspension or anything like that. And I haven't done any body work on it. The car. I was lucky enough that the car was pretty rust free. Uh, and I haven't done any interior work on it neither. Only a little bit of interior work is needed, but this car was really a nice car to begin with. So I'm just saying this is because if you were to do all those things, and there would be more like a restoration. But this is not a restoration of this vehicle. This is just to get the car running from a car that's been sitting for a long time, to get into running condition and get it actually on the road and get it driving and stopping properly, and not overheating, and pretty much getting you to places without you having to worry about it, getting it pretty much safe and reliable on the road. So I have a total pretty much of $6,500 if you include the total of the car. So this just gives you an idea of what it would cost to get a similar car like that on the road, and that's you doing all the work yourself, like I've done everything myself. So all the labor involved, I did it myself, and something's frustrating, but you know what? Somebody's got to do the work, and it's not going to get done by itself, so someone has to do it. So the best thing to do, if you want to get something like that done, and you have them, the dedication to do it, I suggest do it. Just keep in mind that it's probably going to cost more. It always costs more than what you think is going to cost. Even surprised me, and I've been doing this for a long time. I didn't think I was going to spend close to $3,500 in parts, and that's me looking into getting the best deal. So imagine if I was just to go to the major parts place and order everything at their, I call it inflated prices. Um, so it probably would have been a lot higher. So, I was surprised that I spent that much just to get the car running and driving. But this is just to give you an idea. Now, I'm very happy with the car. The car runs and drives fine and is back on the road after many, many decades. And, I feel good that the car was saved from just being sitting there. And, it's a part of American history, and it's a cool car. Uh, the car, it has a lot of options that it came from the factory. Power steering, power disc brakes, air conditioning. It's an XR7 model. I mean, it's got many, many options on it, and it's a very nice and comfortable car. So this is just to give you an idea, and I don't want to keep on repeating myself, but just to give you an idea that you're gonna spend some money on, and just keep in mind too that if you pay someone else to do the work for you, you know, this $6,500 total will will blow your mind how much money you can spend on labor. I more or less guesstimated that I have at least 40, book labor hours on this car, and this being kind of generous. So you can imagine if you were to pay someone $150 an hour to do 40 hours worth of work, you're looking at about $6,000 just for labor. And a lot of times, restoration shops now will charge $150 an hour or so, for regular time. In other words, if they start working on your car at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they do 8 hours a day, they're gonna charge you $150 times 8 hours. Because sometimes you can get stuck in you're removing a bolt that breaks, or rusted out components, and it's tough. I mean, The customer, before they know it, they can spend a lot of money on labor, and before they know it, they got, tens of thousands of dollars in a car, and they still don't have a running car. So you need to be careful about that. Uh, Talk to your restoration person. Make sure you understand what he's about to do and for what. Make sure they're reputable. And that's why you see a lot of abandoned projects. People think that it's easy to get an old car and get it restored and get it running, you know. But if you're paying someone to do the work, you're gonna be spending a lot of money. So keep that in mind. I'm not trying to discourage you from doing it that way, but make sure that you know what you're getting into. So this is just an example. And like I said, on this car, on this Cougar that I have these videos on, you can see all the work that I've done. I got 8 videos on this car, and this is going to be the 9th one. But I want you to have just an idea. And tell you what, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a comment. I'll answer all the comments. So let me know if you have any questions about it. I've been doing this for a long time, and I worked and fixed a lot of people's cars on restorations, and I've seen the good and the bad, and I've seen how people get into some projects that are not worth getting into, and before you know it, you're up to, you're very high on your expenses, and you don't want to do that. It's very discouraging, and you feel like you've been taken advantage of. But the fact of the matter is that it's very labor intensive to do this kind of work, and you're going to find out that more and more there's not a lot of people that do this kind of work anymore. Not a lot of people are knowledgeable about old cars, and really, I think mechanics or there's not that many mechanics anymore. The young people, they don't want to do mechanic work anymore. There's a big shortage of mechanics, especially good mechanics and honest mechanics that they want to work with you, and they want to give you a fair price, and they want to tell you what eventually it'll cost you before you get into it. Yeah, I used to have people come to me and say, "Look, I have this '67 model vehicle. It's been sitting for 20 years, and what do you think is going to cost?" It's hard to look at it, but like I went over this list here, it's going to need everything of that just to get it running. It doesn't include paint. It doesn't include rust work. It doesn't include suspension, and it does not include interior or glass or windows working and all that stuff. So be very careful. But this is just to give you an idea. And this car was in real good shape, and in my opinion, it did not take it a lot to get it running. So this is just to give you an idea of what you think. If you have any questions, give me a comment, and that's about it. And let's see. I just want to remind you that I do have those videos on this one car, and I think this is gonna be the last one on this car for now, on this Cougar XR7. But eventually I may bring it back and do some other stuff too. Some other stuff that I want to do to it would be like the dual exhaust system. Like, I didn't do anything to the exhaust system in this car neither. It has single exhaust, and it's kind of needs some work, but it's decent enough to I can still drive it. So I would like to do a dual exhaust system in it. So maybe that'll be in future videos or whatever. I think I'm probably gonna do a follow-up also on the linseed oil that I did on the paint job, and on the vinyl top and the patina on the body surface rust. But other than that, I'm gonna move to other videos. So thank you for watching my videos. If you like what I do and you find value in it, subscribe to it, and I'm gonna be putting out some videos and some interesting cars. And if you have any questions, just please let me know. I'm sure there's some stuff that I did not cover in detail. I am gonna put the list of expenses here somewhere so you can see them. But like I said, they're just basic, and all builds are different, cars that are gonna need different things. This is just an example on this one vehicle. So please, thank you for watching, and thank you for staying until the end. And I know I probably repeated myself several times, but I try to give you as much information as I can. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you the next time. I wanted to show you the shirts that I printed out with my logo here, and it's kind of neat. So if you like the shirt, let me know. They're not for sale right now, but if I have enough people asking for them, then I'll put them up for sale. But for right now, it's just, just to show that my logo and try to get out there and try to get people to know me. So it's a pretty neat shirt. This is the long sleeve, and I have some with the short sleeves, and it has a real nice logo in the back, as you can see. So like I said, they're not for sale right now because I don't have enough audience on the videos. But once I do that, or if I get enough people ordering them, I can give you a price. So hit me up if you're interested in getting one of these t-shirts. And yeah, the way you can help me with the video, and keep the content going, is to subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to build a channel. And I know that just started, but I have a wealth of information that I acquired over decades of working on this vehicle. So you will like it, I guarantee you. So thanks for watching again, and have a great day.